With us right now is South Carolina Senator,
Thanks,
sits on the Senate Finance Committee, Tim Scott. Senator, great to see you. I'm sorry to let this be the peg to which we go to you, sir. But, you know, you have been warning, in fact, before many others, about government spending and how that was setting in motion some of the inflation we see now. As you know, the White House said that a lot of it was propelled out of control by the war, et cetera, in Ukraine. But it's clearly inflation now that's ruling the roost, and fears that we're not only behind the curve, but it's going to get worse. It's going to put a crimp on the economy. It clearly might already be happening. What do you think?
Well, Neil, there's no doubt that if we look at what precipitated the Russian invasion was high inflation. We saw gas prices up about 67%. We saw inflation around 7 to 8%. We saw 40-year high in inflation before the Russian genocide. So the truth is that the President Biden's policies, economic policies, have led to the worst inflationary effects in our economy in 40 years. That means that the average person in our country is experiencing an invisible tax that is eroding their spending power. That means our seniors who are on fixed income have to find a way to ration either their health care, their medicine, their energy, or food. It means that people who are growing up in households like the one I grew up in, they're now having to make harder decisions than they've ever had to make. That's wrong. Biden pouring so much money into our economy has caused our economy to explode in a negative way.
All right. Now, you might not be surprised that the White House has a slightly different view of that and has fingered, you know, other factors here. That today, for example, a lot of people are saying maybe part of this is the Federal Reserve's fault, that its move to aggressively raise interest rates comes too little too late. Others say just the opposite, that now some of these stark measures it appears to be taking to lift interest rates, it's going to slow the economy down and it won't address the underlying inflation. We got a hint of that show labor costs are running at an 8% clip right now. So whatever people are making, they're paying out, and it's like a double whammy. Do you see anything changing that?
I don't, Neil. The problem is that this government has acted too slow too often. They created the inflation. Now they want to have credit for solving the problem, when in fact the problem may actually exacerbate the situation. When your rates start going up, your economic activity starts going down, and that makes you get a little closer to a recession. The truth is that while the inflationary effects cannot be stopped right now, the increase in the interest rates will slow it down, but I don't think it's going to stop it because it's too little too late. The Fed does not have enough tools in the toolkit for the economy that we have today, especially since, as you know, Neil, our unemployment rates are already significantly lower than is normal in this kind of environment. Our labor force participation rate is not actually increasing. That combination is very concerning. And so the interest rates will make it harder for people to buy homes. But for our seniors on fixed incomes, they'll see a bit of a bump in their resources that they have.
You know, Senator, it's interesting, but this does appear to be a worldwide problem. In Britain, of course, they just raised rates for the fourth time since just December. I think they're in and out of 13, 14-year highs on interest rates. Turkey's running a 70% inflation rate. Argentina, 75%. Brazil, 50%. Europe collectively now in excess of 11%. Are we back in the 70s here?
Well, I tell you what, I think we are. I mean, literally, this feels like the Carter eras. When you think about the explosive price in gas, when you think about what it costs to heat or cool your home if you're in South Carolina, it is drastic. But more importantly, when you look at the global effect, you remember the days, Neil, when Venezuela was at a 900% inflationary effect because of the crushing decisions of their government.
Why would you assume I'm that old, Senator? Why would you assume I'm that old? Actually, I do remember. Verbatim.
That was only 2 or 3 years ago. We're both. It's only 2 or 3 years ago. So the truth is that the whole globe responds to the type of economic decisions that we make here at home. That's why our global leadership economically matters so much. We should be forcing decisions here at home. Like, why not restart our own energy economy, creating 6-figure jobs here at home, why not continue the conversation around the Keystone XL pipeline? Why not have the PPE coming back home? Why not use opportunity zones to attract insourcing back into America?
Well, assuming,
we did it in
Senator,
South
that
Carolina.
doesn't happen. Let's say politically,
back.
reading the tea leaves here, that doesn't seem likely, at least under this administration. You could argue right now they're really hanging their hats on maybe more spending. They've talked about, college loan forgiveness and all of that. I just wonder, is their cure, it's far from what your cure would be. It doesn't sound like anything will happen legislatively, if even that's an option here, and everything is hanging on the Federal Reserve. Does that worry you?
It does worry me because, as we know, that the Federal Reserve can only increase interest rates. That's really they could slow, of course, they're starting the process of unwinding their balance sheet or reducing their balance sheet. That will have impact too. So they could slow that and increase interest rates. But the truth of the matter is, our economy needs smart, reasonable leadership at the top. We're not getting that right now. They have fundamentally misunderstood the American economy, pouring $2 trillion in the first 60 days of the administration, then a $1.2 trillion plan, and then they talked about trillions of more dollars, the Build Back Broker plan, as I like to call it. So what we're talking about is Democrats who believe that more money from the government is a solution to an already hot economy. That is antithetical to reality. He also, of course, President Biden said he wants to reduce costs for companies by raising wages. In other words, he doesn't understand the private sector. So we need to make sure that we focus on solutions, not things that only exacerbates the situation.
Senator, while I have you, we're learning of some spike in COVID cases, certainly abroad and in China, where they're trying to get this under control. They're off their worst levels, but they're still jumping, just not as high as they had been. And in New York City, they've raised the COVID risk level amid a surge in the New York metropolitan area with an increase in hospitalizations, possibly not deaths. Only reason why I raise it with you, sir, is this notion that maybe we're not out of the COVID woods, and this is partly weighing on some of the selling and adding to the uncertainty. What do you think of that?
Well, there's no doubt when you look at the supply chain coming from China that it's going to have an impact on that supply chain when people can't go to work because they're on a strong COVID lockdown. But COVID is going to be is endemic within our community at this point, not an epidemic as I see it. So what we need to do is continue to make the adjustments that we're seeing around the country. The good news is at home in South Carolina, our unemployment rate is 3.4% statewide. We have 2.9 in Greenville and Columbia, 3.1 in Charleston, or those numbers may be around those numbers. So the good news is we're proving that we can handle the COVID challenges in a right-to-work environment. I'd recommend that we export South Carolina values and the dignity and work throughout the rest of the country, especially places like New York and California. So I think we have solutions to the problems that we're seeing around those blue states.